Have you ever heard anyone criticize a politician by saying this? They haven't gotten any bills passed. Or ever hear a politician say in a bragging way how many bills they have personally gotten passed? Or criticizing other politicians for not passing as many laws or legislation as they have? It's like they believe passing more bills more frequently is a good thing. Imagine if every politician now and in history practiced this. We would not have any freedoms at all. Why does any politician or anyone feel it's a good thing to pass more bills and create more laws? They brag about laws they got passed like they did something great. Now, pat me on the back. I have seen legislators work for years bringing the same bill back every year to get something passed they believe in, even if it's not that great for everyone else, or especially if it's a horrible bill, but they want it passed. Getting legislation passed becomes a political race for victory instead of their original intentions for the people, for freedom, for a responsible government, and for the love of America. As long as they get their victory, who cares about all that government by the people, for the people, or whatever? And a point to add, often the politician getting credit for filing it wasn't even the one that thought about it or created it in general. They were just chosen as the flag bearer to carry it for whatever reason, get them some credit, you know, get them in favor of whoever created it, help them politically, or as a thank you for something else. And if the bill was handed to them or supported by a governor or a president, the politician loses their mind with the feeling of being special. So they especially don't care if the bill is bad as long as they get it passed and please their master. I mean, the person that asked them to carry the water. I know there are some good laws and things we need that have to be done legislatively. And there are some good politicians, but rarely do the two meet. And the momentum never stops at doing just what is needed. The process becomes a sport or an addiction or a learning moment on how to get more power for politicians, government, or bureaucracy later that can be used to control people and acquire more power and more control later through the same process. The idea of getting a victory to get something passed means more important to them or becomes more important to them than what it may actually do for the people. Or worse yet, the victory becomes more important than people's rights, especially if it is a bad piece of legislation being done for some group or special interest. Damn the people's rights and who cares about it as long as it makes government more powerful and less efficient. The sport, the fight, and the victory are now more important. Bragging rights from getting a bill passed become more important than individual rights. And people get conditioned in the process to expect more legislation, especially when they have been brainwashed in the process to believe that the best way to protect and advance their personal beliefs is to cheer their team of politicians on for a victory in getting more legislation passed. And then they try to convince more elected officials to use the same process through bragging about politicians that got a bill passed or shaming a politician for not creating more bills. We have been conditioned to believe that we need people in office constantly creating legislation or they aren't doing anything. People expect it so much, in fact, that they even expect it from the proxy politicians, also known as the bureaucrats in the bureaucratic system that is constantly creating rules and regulations outside of the constitutional process, circumventing our rights. But hey, that's what they are supposed to be doing, right? At least that's what we have been conditioned to believe, to expect rules and laws from our politicians and our bureaucratic state. We have been conditioned to believe that the process of creating more laws is how we protect our rights and ideologies and beliefs. And that is wrong. People want politicians, or they expect politicians to do something for them. But the people in this case don't realize that most politicians see that desire for people to create laws as abdicating authority to them, the politicians, to do what they want instead, and create more laws for the ideology that they have conditioned everyone to support through the narratives and indoctrination. People watch the process like it's a sporting event, cheering on their team to win. And just like financially being invested in the game or in the sports team that they believe in, with time and money, from buying a parking ticket to tailgating to expensive admission and the food and the drinks in the stadium and hours cheering on their team, people will do the same for politicians that are creating rules and laws for them. People will donate and work on political campaigns to push their player, i.e., their politician, to victory, to create more laws that fits their ideology, even if it means less freedom for others. George Orwell said in 1984, the book 1984, that is, so as long as they, the proles, continue to work and breed, their other activities were without importance. Left to themselves, heavy physical work, the care of home and children, petty quarrels with neighbors, films, football, beer, and above all, gambling filled up the horizons of their mind. To keep them in control was not difficult. And they have learned to use these life distractions and blend in the right narratives and hot topics to further distract us while they create more laws, and we cheer them on in the process. Why don't we ever hear politicians saying, let's repeal some laws, or at the very least, the bad ones? We can't just go with, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because it's all broken. So we need to unwind it carefully. But how about if politicians were to say, I'm not going to introduce anything new until I fix or repeal what's broken? The problem is that over many generations of politicians in office, they see everything as something that needs to be changed, and they are climbing over each other to fix it by creating more burdensome laws on the American people, or at least the people that don't agree with them. And now people expect it. So politicians work harder and immediately do something. And lately, it has been more fixing it their way in order to appeal to the ideologies, feelings, and building more government for more control and ingratiate themselves with money and power while we cheer them on to do more. And they take that support as permission to make government bigger. Instead, I want to hear politicians say, I got rid of this many old laws that were weighing down the system and making things inefficient. Or, we got rid of this many laws that were violating people's rights. I want to hear politicians say, let's eliminate laws that are outdated. I want to hear them say, let's get rid of the rules, laws, and regulations that were created that by the bureaucratic state that infringes on personal freedoms, liberties, especially where the Constitution was circumvented without a vote in Congress. I want to hear them say, that they are going to get rid of burdensome laws that are overburdening us and our constitutional rights. There are so many laws and pieces of legislation on the books that there is a complicated, convoluted legal bureaucratic mess that no one knows how to navigate. And if we continue to expect politicians to create more laws and continue to pass more legislation, we will never be able to unwind the mess. How about expecting politicians to clean up the mess by getting rid of legislation? I want to hear politicians say, I passed legislation to evaluate any law or regulation created by a bureaucratic agency that violates anyone's constitutional rights. Better yet, more often, I want to hear politicians say, I didn't do anything but watch out for our freedoms and support the Constitution. That, my friends, is how I think politicians should be thinking instead of passing more rules and laws. And if you agree with me, please share this episode with somebody that you think might agree with us. And if you want to support my show and a company that supports our freedoms and liberties, please switch your cell phone service to a company that agrees with us by going to patriotmobile.com/WWFA. Remember that patriotmobile.com/WWFA will support a company that believes in our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, our constitutional rights. You'll find a plan to save some money, and you will also find better service because they use all three carrier lines. Thank you so much, and please don't forget to share the show.